Hello, everybody. This is going to be part two of a series where we walk through each of the 7 stages of the predictable success life cycle. And what we're going to do, we're going to talk about how a business in each stage feels the impact of of COVID-19, how they're experiencing it, and then more importantly, what do you do about it? So last week we talked about businesses that were in early struggle. If you missed that, I'm not going to cover it again, but I'd encourage you to go back and look at it. Really, what we talked about was, hey, you have 3 options. Do you need to push pause? Do you need to not start a new business, or do you really need to plow ahead? And if you do, how do you do that? Today, we're actually going to shift gears into the stage 2 of the predictable success life cycle, and that is fun, right? In post, COVID-19, in the era that we're in, I don't know that fun's really the right word, but what it is, fun is the organic growth stage of a business. You're out of that early struggle, painful, we're trying to figure out what's going on, and into fun. But unfortunately, what happened for a lot of businesses, I was talking with folks at the beginning of the year, many businesses in fun, and it was set to be a banner year. I mean, it was going to be incredible. But then March hit, right? It's just such a stunning contrast. January, February, biggest month ever for many businesses, setting records, about to have an incredible Q1, and then March hit and the world shut down. And what happens with businesses that are in fun, there's this headwind that comes in any type of economic downturn. So you can take past recessions, you can take even the Great Depression, and you can take the really sudden impact of COVID-19, and then on top of that, we just have the social disruption that happened, which just really presents a very unique time. But all of that creates a headwind that pushes an organization that's in fun down and for most cases back into early struggle. And my heart goes out to businesses that were in fun and find themselves in early struggle now, because it's like you've worked so hard to get out of that. Getting out of fun is no joke. You defied the odds. You beat the statistics. You made it this far, and then all of a sudden, something way outside of your control has an impact. And we're several months into this now, and it's likely that most of you have in some way, shape, or form come to grips with what's going on. But what I've found in working with leaders right now, business owners in small businesses that are trying to lead their business through this crisis and hopefully get back into that fun stage, there's still a lot of confusion. There's still a lot going on that we need to figure out. And my hope is that with this, I'll be able to help you do that. So, all right, let's jump into it. Basically, first thing is this. If you've not downloaded the Upside of a Downturn, I think you're going to love it. I'd highly recommend that you get it. I'll post it in the description here in a bit, but I would highly recommend that you get a copy of that. You can go onto the website, 8figurefocus.com, and it's there. That out of the way. Inside of that, I lay out a 3-phase plan, and businesses in fun are kind of the first group that really appeals to. So if you've got a small business, I'd highly recommend looking for the Upside of a Downturn. The 3 strategies are this, the 3 phases, I should say, are this. Phase 1, you got to build a clear strategy for your team. Phase 2, you've got to retool your sales and marketing. And then finally, phase 3 is to move fast. We're not going to go into that here. If you want to know more about that, download it. But what I want to talk about right now, specifically, how do you rebuild a business that's in fun? I want to add to that 3-phase program that I gave for everybody and say, if your business wasn't fun, if you're still there, if you're hanging on to it, here are the 3 things that you need to do particularly to deal with this crisis. Okay, the first one is this. You need to set up your system for operators. Now, what do I mean by operators? If you followed me for a period of time, you'll know that I use something called the Synergist model, and I use it for my clients. And basically, there are 4 types. I'll talk about each of those types in a moment. But right now, the most crucial, the most critical of all of them, the most helpful, if you have them, you love them, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, is operators. And the brilliance of your situation is that if you were in fund before the crisis hit, you probably have a higher percentage of operators than anybody else in any other stage of the life cycle. And so first, right out of the gate, I want to say you do have an advantage right now. And that advantage is those operators. You see, operators, okay, who are they? They're the folks that are wired to finish things and fix things. They're the MacGyver of the Synergist model. And you know, a few things that the kind of the tell of a operator is this: they want to be left alone to get the job done, right? But they're relentless task finishers. They're very action oriented. They're great improvisers, and these folks, and we need them for this right now. But they are happy to work long hours. In the predictable success world, we call them fish. First in, still here, right? And you know them. Those folks on your team who no matter how early you get up, somehow they were always at the office before you, and they're one of the last ones to leave every night. Those are operators. And it's easy to see why someone who's willing to work the long hours, whose focus is on finishing things, getting stuff done, executed, who love to fix things that are broken, they're going to shine right now. And so we really want to build the system around those 3 types, around the operator. And to do that, we actually have to not build around the other 3 types. So I want to go into this real quick, just in case you're new to the model. First one is this: visionaries. Visionaries are the ones who you know, are usually the one to start the business. A lot of times they're CEO, a lot of times they're head of product design, whatever it may be. They love to start things. They love to solve things, which is very helpful, especially in crisis. But in crisis, they can tend to go on overdrive. And the real challenge, especially with what we would call a dominant visionary, is their desire to fix things by creating ends up starting fires all over an organization that in a way is already on fire. And and then they move on to the next thing before anyone's really had a chance to finish the first one. So dominant visionaries, you need to get back into that operator mode. If you've been hanging out at 30,000 feet, you need to get back down to ground level, 5,000 feet, and get your hands dirty and get stuff done. Processors, okay, processors, they love to control and they love to limit risk. And you know, many of you may think, well, that's exactly what we need right now. There's no control in my business at all, and you know, we feel like our risk is out of control. You're right, but it's to an extent that processors probably aren't going to help you do it. And in fact, what's happening, and we'll talk about this in a couple of weeks when we talk about organizations in the decline stages and how they need to recover. But processors right now, they have to resist the urge to kind of compress, to hold back, and they really need to get out there and to an extent join the visionaries in coming up with new ideas. But even more than that, join the operators in saying, how do we execute on what needs to get done this week? It's not going to be pretty. It can't be pretty. We just don't have time for that. But what can we do, and how are we going to do it now? 4th type is this: they're synergists. We love them. We love to be around them. They're fun. They're people, and they love to build consensus. But in crisis, a natural synergist, or someone who has a very high synergist score, they can try too hard to make things comfortable for their team. I've seen this in businesses that have, you know, and it's a difficult decision, but they've hung on to their employees for too long. Many synergists at the start said, we are not going to lose anyone. And that is noble. And I firmly believe that anyone who can do that should. But what synergists do well to recognize is that the business has to exist at the end of this as well. And sometimes we are in a difficult place where we have to choose between everyone having a job or the business existing. And I've seen that it's just a very painful process for synergists right now. And while I'm all for, and I think we need to be doing more of taking care and supporting our staff, what we have to recognize, though, is that the best way to do that for the most the greatest number of people is by working harder than ever to add value to our customers, not make our staff happy. So, and all of that, first thing, set your system up for operators. You have lots of them. It's your competitive advantage right now. Get your MacGyver on. Scrappy is the new way to go, and go for it. Limit the over visionary activity, the over processor activity, the over synergist activity, and you'll be glad you did. All right, number 2, this is the second principle. If your business was in fun before the COVID-19 process started, or pandemic started, is this: you need to continue to focus inside your existing market. Early struggle is all about finding finding a profitable and sustainable market. And what a lot of businesses are being tempted to do right now is to pivot outside of their existing market. And it may be a quick fix, but I think more businesses are going to fail ultimately because they pivoted outside of their market than even those who are sitting and doing nothing, which is not a good idea either. And so when you're talking about pivoting, when you're working with your team, when you're sitting there thinking, what am I going to do with my business? I want you to think about pivoting within your market. I want you to think about leveraging whatever assets you have in the organization, in your head, in your products and services, to serve your existing market. Maybe more accurately, to serve the market that you want to serve when the crisis is over. And I talked a lot about this in an article called How to Get Your Sales Back on Track. You can check it out at the website. But the long and the short of it is, yes, you probably need to pivot in some way, shape, or form, but you probably need to pivot more on the way that you sell and the way that you market than you do on what you sell and what you market. So there's a quick thing that you can do, 5 steps, right? I'm going to go through these real quick. First one, define who your target market was before the crisis. Sit down and literally write it out. Was it people in a specific region that needed a specific thing? Were in a specific industry? Whatever that is, write out who your target market was before the crisis. If you're in fun, you probably never wrote it down in the first place, so this will be an interesting exercise. Number 2, determine whether or not that market is going to come back after the crisis. For the most part, they will, but will the market be big enough to support your new business? That's the question. And again, I think for most of you it will, but it's going to look different than before. And that's step 3. Identify the 3 to 5 key ways, and there may be more, but identify those ways that your customers in your market, not in another market, but in your current market, are struggling. And this is where the magic of a business in fun starts to come into play, because as a business in fun, you're more attuned to your customers' needs than many larger organizations. You have a little bit more in terms of resource than those who were in early struggle when the pandemic started. And so for you, you've got this very distinct opportunity to leverage your current resources, what you currently have. And this is everything from your operators on staff to your ability to flex and have custom solutions for every single client you serve, to even your comfort with risk. This is a really risky time for you. It's a really risky time for a lot of people. But for you, you're closer to that origin story where you took that big risk and started. And you likely have a higher risk threshold than many of your clients. And so if that's the case, leverage that for them. And finally, take this information to your current market and then tell them how you can help now. A lot of people, and I see this in times of crisis, even personal crisis that I've been through before in my life, a lot of people want to come and say, how do I help? That's not a helpful question. The very first thing you can do to help is don't ask how I can help. If you want to be polite and do it in the form of a question, say, hey, can I do this for you? Can I, and that's going to be whatever assets you know you have. You say, can I do this for you? Can I help you with your marketing? Can I help you strategize something? Can I help you with your cleaning processes? I have this. I think it's going to be a helpful tool for you. will it. So don't go to your customers and say, hey, anything I can do, I'd love to help. Tell them how you can help. And that's when you're going to see them start to engage with you much earlier than they otherwise would. All right, final principle here is number 3, you cannot let the quality drop. Pivoting is no excuse to be sloppy. When we talk about being scrappy, when we talk about being, when we talk about pivoting, being innovative, all of those are great. The level of production may not be what it was before, but that doesn't have to equal poor quality. And there's going to be enough mistakes that are going on. You're going to have to pay very close attention to quality. The best way to do this, and where a lot of organizations that I've spoken with are struggling right now, is what they're doing in meetings. Okay, so there's this, everyone was remote. Some people are remote. We don't know what's going to happen in the next week or month or whatever's going on. And what I'm starting to see is some folks are letting their meetings slide, or some people let them slide at the beginning and they're feeling the pain of that. If your business isn't fun, you probably didn't have a whole lot of meetings to start with. We say a board meeting in a fun organization is a ride up an elevator. And so the challenge that you're going to have is you're going to have to get good at meetings fast. Even if your team has 3 people on it, then those 3 people need to be meeting regularly so that you can stay in sync and move forward faster than the business with 3,000 people who's still trying to figure out what to do. It's the best way to keep quality up and the best way to keep the clarity on the team that you guys need. It's so, so important. So how do you use that? Again, 5 pointers for this one, and we're going to be done. First one is keep a central why and use it to establish organization-wide priorities. I talked about this in an article recently, but you got to lean into your why and your values right now, because we don't have the data to say this is right and this is wrong. Well, a lot of what we're doing is going off of gut. In a fun organization, that's a great thing. You've got a higher capacity to do that, but it's important that even in this time of crisis, you hang on to some unifying theme, some central why behind what you do, and that you orient all of your priorities as an organization around that. Next thing here is you need to use the meeting to facilitate information sharing across departments, to shorten feedback loops. So you can talk about sending information all over the place. What we're doing right now is we have to make sure that we are very rapidly getting things out there, trying, and then getting feedback on whether or not they worked. And the best way to do that, even in a small team, is to have effective meetings that are focused on that. So you're not meeting to meet, you're not meeting to talk about your problems, you're meeting to share information and shorten the feedback loop. All right, number 3, intentionally bend or suspend systems and processes so that you can limit and then focus on limiting non-compliance individually. So in the meeting, you got to actively push against system and process. It's not the right answer right now. And you do that so that you can push for compliance individually, right? Give people the freedom that they need to do their space. Don't get all up in their game, right? Give your employees the freedom that they need to try things and get that feedback. And then by giving them that extra space, you're going to earn the right to keep those few areas that really are core, to keep those very tight. All right, number 4, this is really important for the leaders. Leaders in businesses and fun who have lots of operators. We're talking about building a system for operators. What you need to do for your operators, we call it pulling weeds. You need to help them clear out their to-do list. Operators find it very difficult to delegate. They find it very difficult to move something off of their to-do list unless it's actually done. It feels like failure. And so what's happening now, we're 4 months in, your operators have this growing list that's increasing about twice as fast as they can accomplish something right now. You've got to sit down with them and help them get clarity. You've got to sit down with them and actually give them permission to take things off of their list. And finally, this is so important. This is such a big one, and I'm going to end with this. You need to celebrate your wins. There's enough difficulty going on. You don't have to add to it. And few things will keep your team on point and inspired and ready to go Few things will do that like celebrating the wins, no matter how small they are. At my company, one of the things that we did, and it was a struggle to do this consistently, especially in times of crisis, but every Friday morning we would sit down and we would say, what was the best thing that happened this weekend? It could be personal, it could be corporate, it could be whatever, but just what's that best thing that happened? It may be the least bad thing, but being least bad, it's the best. And you'd be shocked at how effective something that simple can be, at how it helps you to recognize, hey, things aren't all bad. This is a challenging time, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunity. It doesn't mean that we're not winning in small ways. And when you win in small ways, you get used to winning in small ways. That's the path to winning in big ways. And when you put all of this together, when you build your system for operators, when you continue to focus on sales and marketing within your existing market, and when you don't let the quality drop, but you start to really up your game in meetings and get everybody on the same page, then I promise you, if you're a business that was in fun, you have some distinct advantages in the market right now. And you're going to be able to start the road to recovery faster. And I believe that if you play the cards right, if you follow these steps, if you really keep pushing hard, even when you're not seeing any fruit, your business that was in fun will get back into fun, and it'll move way deeper into fun, way faster than the businesses around you. And you may be able to skip an entire growth cycle as a result of this crisis and end up way better off because of it. I firmly believe that many businesses, that the ones that take the right actions, are going to be further down the road because of the crisis than they would have if they kept having the great months that they were having in January and February. It's going to push you to a new level of innovation, creativity. It's going to push you to dig deep. And when you find that inside yourself, you don't lose it. So I want to encourage you, if your business is in fun and you're really struggling right now, I get it. It's not an easy time, but don't think that means you don't have an advantage, because you absolutely do. All right, that's all for today. If your business isn't fun, push hard and it's going to work out. Hang in there.